Good evening, everybody. Access to justice, what does it mean? Access to catharsis? It probably should mean access to a fundamentally fair system for everyone. All too often, though, it seems to mean access to lawyers. And when you need a lawyer, what do? Yellow Pages? The internet? Ask your dad's real estate lawyer? Ask the neighbor guy who got that DUI after accidentally having 2 beers. If you are Candy Summers, a Toronto-born, Miami-living, high-class escort with a sugar daddy currently in Vegas on business, and you want to go visit him, but on the plane on the way there, you get arrested for threatening to blow up the plane, what do? Do you call your high school friend Lori, who you heard was in pre-law? If you're Candy, the answer is yes. Lori Dubin, a friend of mine, was an articling student at the firm where I had just been hired as an associate. And Candy's sugar daddy, whose name was Frank, found out just how much money he could do in one transaction to retain a law firm in Canada, and sent my firm, Durstein Penman, $15,000 without a word. I was assigned to accompany Lori to Vegas on no notice whatsoever. This was 2003. I had 16 months' experience. They don't teach transnational prostitute terrorism in bar ads. So I was a little bit underripe for the job. In the cab on the way to the airport, it occurred to me that I was not licensed to practice law in Nevada. So I did what I did until very recently when I was in trouble, which was I called Eddie Greenspan. And I asked him for advice and the name of a local lawyer. And this man, Eddie, I miss him terribly. He was amazing at this kind of thing. You could have a client charged with stealing moon rocks on the moon, and he would know who to call, and he'd have some advice for you. And he gave me all I needed to know. One name, a man in Las Vegas, a lawyer named Dominic Gentile. Now, Dominic Gentile had been partners with Oscar Goodman. Oscar Goodman was the then mayor of Las Vegas. So Eddie did not let me down when I said I wanted Vegas's heaviest hitter. Goodman, by the way, was a notorious drunk and actually claimed to have invented the expression, "I don't have a drinking problem. I drink, get drunk, fall down, no problem." Some of us have senior partners who go on to become judges. Dominic's senior partner went on to become a T-shirt. So we get to Vegas, Lori and I, we go right to the courthouse, the brand spanking new War on Terror built federal courthouse. And we got our hands on the FBI affidavit that set out the charges against Candy and the details of the evidence. And we had a chance to review it, and here's what we could piece together happened. Some people may take a Gravol before they get on a plane. Candy took pills and cocaine. Some people may take a book on the plane. Candy brought her miniature teacup pincer named Lily that for some reason was dressed as a pirate. She had it in one of those mesh carrying cases, and as soon as the plane was in flight, she promptly let Lily run all over the plane. And she started downing in-flight vodka. Candy, not Lily. "Put the dog away," said the flight crew. "I can't," said Candy. "Why not?" "Oh, because she's busy. She's busy sniffing for bombs." Now, from that groan, I don't know if you've ever read that euphemistic sign at airport security, or maybe you've seen Meet the Parents, but they have a pesky little hang-up about the use of that word on airplanes. And they tried to restrain Candy in her seat, and she freaked out, had a huge episode. A flight attendant got punched, another one got knocked to the ground, and according to the affidavit, Candy put her hand in her pants, pulled out a wad of pubic hair, and pushed it into the face of a flight attendant. She was restrained, arrested when she landed, and the charge was interference with aircraft, a federal charge. We briefly got to see Candy, who was amazed that her friend Lori had seemingly appeared out of nowhere, but we couldn't say much to her. She was a crying mess and quite distraught and coming down off a pretty bad trip. If you've been to Vegas, you might know the Hilton Flamingo. It's right at the Four Corners, and Dominic's office was just a short 5-minute walk from there, a very impressive place. And there we met Frank, who was a pasty, puny, married banker from Washington, D.C., when Dominic told him the fee was $50,000 for a federal charge, he handed it over without a word. Dominic looked at our affidavit and showed us the statute, the law that she'd breached. You may remember that Stephen Harper brought in a bunch of mandatory minimum sentences. Well, he didn't invent the concept, the United States did. And this federal charge of interference with aircraft had a minimum sentence of 84 months, 7-year sentence. Bail was out of the question because she was in the States working illegally as a Canadian, and her only possible bailer would have been Frank, but when she was searched, they found a bunch of pill bottles ill-gotten with his name on them, so we kept him quiet. Dominic says, let's go to court. It's 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. And this lawyer managed to get Judge Lawrence R. Levitt to interrupt a jury trial just to hear from Dominic. The man was really impressive. He was a tall, handsome, Italian-American lawyer. And when I introduced him to Candy, all she could do was whisper in my ear that she thought he was hot. So she's sitting in the jury box shackled as the other lawyers cleared away from their desks. And we went over to her, Lori, Dominic, and I, with the affidavit, started reviewing it with her. The dressed-up dog. Yeah, I did that. Dog running around the plane. Yeah, I did that. Getting wasted on everything. Yeah, I did that. The pubic hair incident. No, I didn't do that. And I can prove it. According to Candy, no self-respecting call girl has a furnished basement. So Dominic took this information to the prosecutor, who was a boyish dork named Dennis and was unmoved by it at first, but Dominic just worked circles around this guy and had all these arguments, and I can't remember all of them. I must admit the I'm shaved defense is what sticks in my memory. But he had a great persuasive argument, and after about 10 minutes of him ranting with great arguments about the federal statute and whatnot, the prosecutor agreed to drop the charge if she pleaded guilty to interference with air crew instead of interference with aircraft, the latter of those charges having a minimum sentence of $500. You may not find a more stark example of the arbitrariness of mandatory minimum sentences. So Frank's weekend is now up to $65,500, and he's got no nookie yet, and he wouldn't get any either because the prosecutor said, we're not letting her go, she's an immigration violator. So Dominic said, well, where's your warrant for that? They couldn't produce it, so the judge said, I'm not going to listen to that argument, but she has to leave the States immediately, and Judge Levitt observed wisely, no airline is going to let her on the plane. He ordered Lori, my student, to drive Candy directly to Canada. The only vehicle available was Frank's rented Lexus. So that story has a happy ending. You may think it was an unusual way to call an old high school friend you haven't seen in 5 years, but through some happenstance and a whole lot of who you know, we saved Candy a major ordeal. You know, in Canada, we're still struggling with how to deal with these mandatory minimum sentences. In Vegas, apparently all you need is an Italian lawyer and a Brazilian beaver. Thank you very much for coming tonight, folks.